After the press leaves, the president and his advisors retreat to the Oval Office. Defense Secretary Dick Cheney asks the question on everybody's mind. Is the United States willing to put lives on the line to stop Saddam? It's the most important question of the Bush presidency and the hardest decision for any commander-in-chief.
Saddam could very easily, had he chosen to do so, not just taken Kuwait, but marched right on down the Arabian Peninsula and got his hands on all of that Saudi oil as well.
National Security Advisor Brent Scowcroft provides some sobering statistics. With Kuwait, Saddam controls 20% of the world's oil reserves. If he moves on Saudi Arabia, that number doubles to 40, giving America's #1 enemy vast revenues that could buy the biggest army in the world and accelerate his acquisition of chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons. The Commander-in-Chief asked the chairman of the Joint Chiefs for military options. But current assets in the Middle East are limited.
Well, you got to remember, in those days, war plans were Soviet Union, Korea, and then the Middle East. But no one believed the Middle East would be the next hotbed.
Bush tells the NSC meeting he won't tolerate appeasement of any kind.
No negotiations for concessions and no rewards for aggression.
Europe tried to appease Hitler, he tells them, leading to World War II. The Commander-in-Chief isn't prepared to let history repeat itself in the Middle East. The president leaves for Aspen, Colorado, for a scheduled meeting with British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. All the way across the country, aboard Air Force One, he works the phones, conferring with world leaders, building the foundation for an unprecedented international coalition to oppose the invasion of Kuwait.
The president, he understood full well that if we could bring a lot of the rest of the world behind our cause, it would make it easier. Now, did I know at that time that we could get it done? No. But we had a secret weapon. We had the president working the phones.
Bush needs the support of Saddam's friends and foes alike. From a recently declassified transcript of the president's calls from Air Force One, King Hussein of Jordan urges restraint from the United States. From Bush's diary.
I called Mubarak and King Hussein of Jordan. Both were disturbed by the situation, but the king's reluctance had me concerned.
King Hussein thought he had things under control.
The Arab leaders were saying, don't overreact, America. We know how to handle this.
Throughout the flight, the American commander-in-chief continues to build support for an alliance to liberate Kuwait, if Iraq's Arab neighbors can't contain the crisis on their own. In Colorado, British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher pledges Great Britain's support for the president's coalition.
Prime Minister Thatcher and I are on exactly the same wavelength, concerned about this naked aggression.
Late that night, President Bush arrives back at the White House, nearly 24 hours after Brent Scowcroft woke him up with news of the invasion. Support for the U.S.-led coalition is growing, but the latest intel from the Gulf paints an ominous picture. Saddam now has enough troops in place to keep his grip on Kuwait and launch an attack in Saudi Arabia. It's time for the commander-in-chief to make a decision that will move the country one step closer to war.